At its peak, a single American fruit company controlled more land than 6 sovereign nations combined, commanded its own private railway network, operated its own telegraph system, and could, and did, remove sitting heads of state. It was not a government. It sold bananas. The United Fruit Company was founded in 1899 from the merger of several smaller tropical trading operations. From the beginning, it understood something that most corporations never grasp. The real product was never the fruit. The real product was control. Control of land, of labor, of ports, of governments, and ultimately of the story told about all of it. The company's method was elegant in its ruthlessness. It would approach a small Central American government with a proposition: grant us the land, exempt us from taxes, and give us control of your ports and railways. In return, we will build infrastructure, bring jobs, and modernize your country. It sounded like development. It functioned like annexation. By the early 20th century, United Fruit had assembled a land empire across Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and Cuba. In Honduras alone, the company owned roughly 1 million acres. It paid almost nothing in taxes. It controlled the country's only deepwater port. The Honduran government owed more money to United Fruit's banks than it collected in annual revenue. The phrase "banana republic" was not a metaphor. It was a business model. The internal world of a United Fruit operation was essentially a parallel state. The company built and owned entire towns, called divisions, carved out of the jungle. It ran the hospital, the commissary, the housing, the school. Workers were paid partly in company scrip, currency that could only be spent inside company-owned stores. You were born in a United Fruit hospital, raised in a United Fruit town, and paid in United Fruit money. The company didn't extract wealth from these places. It simply replaced them. The labor conditions were severe by any standard. Workers, predominantly Afro-Caribbean and indigenous, labored in extreme heat for wages that amounted to a fraction of what American workers earned in comparable roles. Attempts to organize were met with dismissal, blacklisting, or in some cases, something worse. The company maintained relationships with local military forces who understood their role clearly. Labor unrest was not a negotiation. It was a security problem. But the company's most consequential power was political. United Fruit employed lobbyists in Washington and cultivated relationships at the highest levels of the United States government. Its executives moved fluidly between the boardroom and the cabinet. Sam Zemurray, who eventually took control of the company, had personally financed a private coup in Honduras in 1910 to protect his own banana concessions, hiring mercenaries, running guns, and installing a more favorable president. This was not rogue behavior. It was standard operating procedure. The most dramatic demonstration of the company's reach came in 1954 in Guatemala. The democratically elected president Jacobo Arbenz had passed a land reform law that threatened to redistribute unused United Fruit landholdings, compensating the company at the value it had declared on its own tax returns, which was considerably less than what the company now claimed the land was worth. United Fruit lobbied Washington hard. The Eisenhower administration, with the CIA, organized a covert operation called Operation PB Success. Arbenz was overthrown. Guatemala entered decades of military rule and civil conflict that killed an estimated 200,000 people, according to later historical estimates. United Fruit had not fired a single shot. It had made a phone call. For a long time, the company's version of events was the version that existed. It maintained a public relations department that was, by any honest assessment, one of the most sophisticated propaganda operations in corporate history. It cultivated journalists, funded favorable research, and framed its presence in Central America as a civilizing mission. Progress in the tropics, modernity delivered by enterprise. The governments it had helped install repeated the message. There was no competing account. The crack, when it came, was not moral. It was structural. In 1958, the United States Department of Justice concluded a long-running antitrust investigation and forced United Fruit to divest significant operations. Then banana prices softened. Then a fungal disease called Panama disease began destroying the Gros Michel variety the company had built its entire supply chain around. United Fruit had monocultured its way into a biological catastrophe, planting only one variety in the same soil decade after decade until the pathogen found it. The company scrambled to switch to the Cavendish banana, the variety you buy today. But the transition was expensive and disruptive. and the company never fully recovered its footing. Through the 1960s and 1970s, United Fruit was battered by antitrust actions, a bribery scandal involving payments to the Honduran government to secure favorable export taxes, and rising nationalist sentiment in the countries it had long treated as operating divisions. In 1970, United Fruit merged with AMK Corporation and was renamed United Brands. The old name was retired quietly, but renaming a company does not rename what it did. What United Fruit built was not simply an evil empire, though it did evil things. It was the clearest possible demonstration of what happens when a private entity is allowed to accumulate the functions of a state: infrastructure, currency, security, political influence, without the accountability of one. Every structural protection that modern societies build against corporate overreach exists, in part because something like United Fruit proved the need for it. The banana is a very ordinary thing. The story behind it is not.